Chapter 91. Satisfied, 4, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 91. Chapter 25. Satisfied, 4, understood. The two communicated for a while before Li Hao hung up. His face was calm. There was no trace of the nervousness and uneasiness from earlier. His acting was not bad. Although Lu Long was helping him, Li Hao indeed needed to understand more about his mysterious abilities. Given Lu Long's stinginess, Li Hao wouldn't be happy to be rewarded with a few mysterious powers for killing the red shadow in the dark. That was too little. Saving it meant saving it. Saving it meant that other people were not suitable for it. It was better to let himself try to absorb it. As for the amount of energy each person could absorb, it was not good to absorb too much. Li Hao was not in this situation. The starlight energy was the best method to neutralize the mysterious energy. Exposing Wang Ming, no matter what his identity is, will greatly increase the security. It's not bad to get two more mysterious energies. Another point is to shift everyone's attention to the sword. The possibility of my jade pendant being exposed will be very low. Li Hao calculated for a moment and was quite satisfied with his performance. Of course, compared to his teacher, he was still lacking. His teacher had beaten him half to death, and the other party had to find a way to help him heal, afraid that he would die. In comparison, Li Hao felt that he still needed to learn from his teacher, who was a good example. Teacher really didn't care about the two mysterious powers. The road ahead is long and arduous. Li Hao returned to the private room. Wang Ming was indeed a rich man. It was just the three of them, but he ordered more than 10 dishes, some of which Li Hao had never heard of. Compared to Wang Ming, Li Hao realized that he was indeed poor. While they were eating, Chen Na suddenly said mysteriously, "Little Ming, you're from the White Moon City. That's a big city. Tell me honestly, do you have any special purpose in coming to the Silver City this time?" Wang Ming was taken aback. Exposed? It can't be. Seeing his expression, Chen Na seemed to understand. Seeing Li Hao's blank face, she sighed. "Li Hao, you're a student of the Silver City Ancient Academy, but you don't understand the key to this. I've heard about it, you know. Our Silver Blizzard City might need to select a group of people to go to the White Moon City." Li Hao was confused. What? Training? Or a promotion? None of them. Chen Na glanced at Wang Ming, then shook her head and sighed. "You don't know, but Little Ming definitely knows. At the end of each year, some young people from the Silver City's inspection division would disappear and go to White Moon City to participate in a selection. If he succeeds, he might become a legendary figure." At this moment, Wang Ming secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He finally understood. It was the Night Watcher selection. "You scared me to death, I really thought I was exposed." Li Hao also knew that the Nightwalker had selected some people from Blizzard Silver City to participate in the energy absorption. A success rate of 1%. Lu Long had mentioned this before. Clearly, Chen Na had misunderstood. She thought that Wang Ming had come from White Moon City because of the intense competition and pressure there, so he had come to Silver City to fight for a spot. Li Hao still pretended not to understand. "Sister Na, what are you talking about? A legendary figure? I already said you don't understand. It's a pity. Li Hao, you can actually ask your teacher. Xiao Ming knows about this, right?" "I know a little." Wang Ming nodded and smiled. "I knew it. You people from the big cities are so scheming." Chen Na said proudly. "Little Ming, have you really seen those legendary figures in the White Moon City?" A legendary figure. Wang Ming was a little speechless. After thinking about it, he decided to say a few words. After all, he was now tacitly acknowledging that he had come to fight for a spot, and no one would believe him if he didn't know anything. "I've seen him before, but I've never had an in-depth exchange with him. Seeing that Li Hao seemed to have understood something, Wang Ming knew that this guy must have learned something from Lu Long. After some thought, he decided that he couldn't say too much or lie. It's actually an organization that surpasses ordinary people. In fact, it was also a part of the inspection division. Every year, some people will be selected from the bottom level to participate in the selection and then be introduced into the organization. Oh. Li Hao was a little curious. He hurriedly said, "Now that you mention it, I think I know something about it. I've heard my teacher mention it before. Today at my teacher's place, I actually saw such a person. I'm afraid that no one will believe me if I tell them, but it's true. A man can fly." I'm shocked. Little Ming, such a person should be a top figure in the White Moon City, right? He was carefully observing Wang Ming. Wang Ming probably knew about Yuan Shua's matter, so there was no need to hide it. He just wanted to see what Wang Ming's attitude toward Hu Hao was. Was it respect? Disdain? Or something else? In this way, he could judge his status and strength. This was Li Hao's little trick. According to what he knew, Hu Hao was a Dark Moon super. According to his teacher, Hu Hao wasn't too powerful, but he had a special ability. He was considered a newcomer to the Dark Moon level. If he fought with Lu Long, he might be killed by Lu Long. Then what about this Wang Ming? Since the night patrolman had asked him to investigate in secret, Lu Long was only in existence on the surface. Could this guy be stronger than Lu Long? Wang Ming indeed hadn't noticed this, and he laughed when he heard this. A big shot. To us, they're all important people. It can fly. Very powerful. But you said that you saw him at your teacher's place. I don't think he's that good. Otherwise, your teacher would have introduced him to you. Has your teacher introduced him to you? No, I didn't. Isn't this it? Wang Ming laughed. Li Hao also nodded. He knew that Hu Hao's status was not as high as this guy's. This guy's status was higher than his, and perhaps his strength was even stronger. It might not be the sun glory, but it could be quite powerful among the Dark Moon levels. At this moment, Wang Ming didn't know that he had almost sold all his assets to Li Hao without saying anything. Everyone was satisfied after the meal. Wang Ming talked about a lot of interesting things in White Moon City, and Li Hao and Chen Na also talked about some things they needed to pay attention to in the secrets room. Chen Na didn't think much of it, but Li Hao felt that he had gained a lot. The biggest gain was that Wang Ming didn't feel that his identity had been exposed, so he casually said that he wouldn't be able to get to work on time the day after tomorrow, because an elder at home would be coming to Silver City to visit him. Li Hao immediately took note of this. An elder. Was he really an elder, or was he a strong person among the night watchers? Were the night patrolmen going to send a stronger presence to the Silver City? It was a secret operation, but it was a pity that he had run into Wang Ming, the blockhead. Fortunately, Li Hao wasn't a bad guy, but a messenger of justice. Otherwise, he would have been beaten to death for leaking secrets. Before he left, Li Hao patted Wang Ming's shoulder and said a few words of concern. In fact, he just felt that the supers in front of him did not seem to be too scary. He didn't seem to be very smart. He was very stupid and felt that he was very smart. Supers. That's about it. They're strong, but they don't have enough brains. I don't think they're as stressed as Lu Long. Li Hao, who had left on his bicycle, was not as afraid of supers as before. Go home. While no one was paying attention, he took out the stone knife and wondered if he could get some water to soak it in. The starlight on the jade sword was very powerful, but what about the stone knife? Was it the same starlight energy or something else? At this moment, Li Hao was looking forward to it. In front of the restaurant. Wang Ming felt a little strange as he watched Li Hao leave. When Li Hao had left just now, he had been acting like an old brother, which had actually given him the wrong impression that he was really stupid and cute. Did this guy really think he was a newcomer to the secrets room? It seems that the students of the Silver City's ancient academy aren't necessarily smarter than the others. Lo Wang Ming shook his head. Li Hao, oh, Li Hao, do you know that you're in more danger than you think? Perhaps it's an existence at the Radiant Sun rank who wants to kill you. Fortunately, there will be stronger existences coming soon. Even if the other party is also from the Sun Glory, we can still deal with them by surprise. Wang Ming was quite satisfied. When that person came, he would report the small sword he had seen today, and that would be a meritorious service. At this moment, Li Hao and Wang Ming were both very satisfied. After the meal, they both felt that their relationship had deepened. Chapter 92. Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 92. Chapter 26 Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 1, Qiming District. Building number 6. There was a simple doghouse at the bottom of the stairs on the first floor of Building 6. It was not clean and had a slightly pungent smell. This was Heibao's home. As for Li Hao's house, it was Li Hao's. In the past, when he was working during the day, he would never let Heibao in. Besides, Heibao wasn't used to staying at home. Who had time to walk their dog? Heibao would walk himself. In the next 2 days, Li Hao had Black Panther stay at home to see if he could spy on the Red Shadow. The simple kennel was made of some old clothes and straw from who knew where. Li Hao also helped by stuffing a sofa cushion that was not used at home into it, making it Black Panther's bed. Normally, no one would care about the Black Panther, let alone clean its kennel. Li Hao parked his bicycle and glanced at the kennel. He didn't look at it for long, and quickly went upstairs with some leftovers. He had been busy for the past 2 days and didn't have time to cook. The expired dog food should have been used up. Heibao was going to be hungry today. Fortunately, he had just packed some leftovers. Wang Ming was a tycoon, so the food he ordered was delicious. Heibao could try it now. Upstairs. The neighbor on the second floor had his door open. Now, there was only one house on the second floor. The previous 2 houses were occupied, and one had moved away. When the neighbor saw Li Hao, she hurriedly greeted him, "Little Hao, you're back." "Yes, Auntie Zhang, it's time to get off work." Li Hao nodded. Just as he was about to go upstairs, the neighbor auntie felt a little embarrassed, but still said, "Little Hao, it's not that I want to criticize you, but don't keep that stray dog. Your parents left and only left this house behind, and everyone at home misses it. You're not at home during the day and locked the dog at home. Today, it's been ringing upstairs the whole day. I suspect that the dog has torn down the house. It rang for a whole day." Li Hao was slightly startled. The Black Panther was quite well behaved. Tear down the house. It can't be. Moreover, Heibao was now human. Li Hao had warned him not to mess around at home. "You'll know when you go back and take a look." The neighbor shook her head helplessly and said, "Also, Little Hao, have you been triggered recently?" Li Hao was speechless. Where did this come from? "Auntie, I'm fine. Just tell me if you have anything to say." "Ahem, isn't it because you've been coming back from work recently and there's been a lot of noise upstairs? Little Hao, in the past, you only trained for a few minutes, but now. To be honest, you have a girlfriend, right?" The middle-aged lady was a little gossipy, and her eyes brightened. "If you're in a relationship, then bring her out for a look. Don't look for those dubious women. She doesn't show up during the day, but tortures me at night. This isn't a decent family." The old lady's face was full of pain and resentment. At this moment, she was probably already imagining a big show. As for Li Hao's ruckus at night, she could guess that he must have called some shady woman back. "That's true, he's young. When he was hot-blooded and didn't have a girlfriend, he must have had such thoughts. Li Hao's mouth was agape. After a long while, he finally said, "Auntie, you misunderstood. I'm working out. Be careful next time. I forgot that the soundproofing of our old building is not good." "I understand." The old lady's face was full of meaning. She understood. "Young man, don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Li Hao was helpless. He understood what the old lady meant. Forget it, when he wasn't at home tomorrow, the news would probably spread in the neighborhood. Every night, he, Li Hao, would call some dubious women home to have fun with, and he would do it the whole night. There was no way to explain it. Even if he did, no one would believe him. Li Hao didn't explain any further and strode upstairs. The next moment, Li Hao almost fell down the stairs. "Little Hao, if you're really looking for a girl, that's fine too, but don't have any feelings for dogs." Li Hao almost fell down. A 10-realm martial master had been completely defeated. In the past, when the black dog was downstairs, there wasn't much movement in your house. But now, after 2 days, there's movement in the middle of the night. I'm not thinking too much, don't misunderstand, but you still have to be careful. This is really not good. The old lady said bitterly. She couldn't help but overthink. "Look, your house was so quiet when Heibao was out, but now that he's staying, you're making a scene at night." Li Hao fled upstairs in a sorry state, and his voice was quickly transmitted, "I'll get Heibao downstairs right away." "Auntie Zhang, it's a big misunderstanding. It's fine if you accuse me of looking for a woman, but you can't accuse me of looking for a dog." "Nav Omn, that's good." Aunt Zhang didn't care so much. She just had to get the dog off. "This young man, don't take the wrong path." He opened the door. They entered. "Close the door." Li Hao exhaled. At this moment, seeing the Black Panther staring at him, Li Hao was speechless. "Did you hear that?" The old lady's combat power was still strong. Even he was frightened. "Woof. Woof. Woof. Cut the crap. Let's go back to your doghouse. Woof. Woof. Woof." The Black Panther wasn't too happy. "The kennel has a smell, but how can it match my current fur? Look, it's so smooth. If I go down like this, the kennel will smell, and won't it taint my good fur? Get down." Li Hao raised his eyebrows and made a stone-smashing gesture. The Black Panther instantly understood. Rock. Precious stone, understood. "I'm going down to look for stones too." Li Hao didn't need to say anything. Black Panther quickly opened the door. Yes, this guy could open the door by himself. Chapter 93. Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 93. Chapter 26 Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 2, the door opened, and a man and a dog quickly went downstairs. The door to the second floor was already closed. The old lady heard the sound of Li Hao bringing the dog down and nodded slightly at the door. Fortunately, the young man finally knew what he was doing. Downstairs. It wasn't too late at night, and there were people walking around the neighborhood. Li Hao didn't care. What he needed was more people. When there were many people, the red shadow would not appear. Black Panther, eat something, where's the dog basin? Li Hao went into the kennel and fumbled around. He took a stone into his long sleeve. After taking away the hidden stone knife, Li Hao casually threw the leftovers to the Black Panther and said in a low voice, "Help me keep an eye on them. It's fine if they come, but remember to call out a few times when that thing appears." Woof. 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 The Black Panther nodded. There was a hint of fear in its eyes. It was also afraid of that thing. However, it was still okay to call out a few times. Li Hao didn't say anything more and strode upstairs. After obtaining the stone saber, he didn't take it away for the past 2 days in order to not attract attention. Now, no one could be sure that he had taken the stone saber. Lu Long might have seen something different in the kitchen, but he was not sure if he was the one who took it. Li Hao went upstairs with the stone saber and closed the door. The stone knife had been left in the kennel for a while and in the kitchen for many years. Li Hao was a little disdainful of it and had to wash it several times. On the sofa, Li Hao scrutinized the stone saber, considering whether he should soak it in water or simply absorb it. He should be able to absorb it with the breathing technique of 5 birds, right? If the jade sword could do it, could the stone knife not? As for the bloodline weapon that his teacher had mentioned, it was only needed to be unsealed. What Li Hao needed was not the stone saber, but to absorb the starlight from it. Absorbing that shouldn't require any bloodline. Otherwise, the Black Panther and my teacher wouldn't be able to absorb the starlight energy in the jade sword. This was Li Hao's judgment, but he wasn't sure if he was right. There was another point. He was hesitating and thinking, could the energy on the stone knife be the same as the jade sword? Or was it the same as the mysterious energy Lu Long gave him? The jade sword was very special. Yuan Shua had made it clear that it was extremely precious. Try it and you'll know. It was useless to think about it. Li Hao was only worried that the red shadow would not appear when he absorbed it. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Little Yuan, I'll use your family's saber first. I'll use it to avenge you. Don't mind me. Li Hao laughed. It's been a year. When your death anniversary comes, I'll kill the red shadow as a memorial for you. He quickly activated the breathing technique of 5 birds, adjusted his breathing, and turned his 5 hearts toward the sky. The stone blade was placed on Li Hao's chest. Whether it had starlight energy or not, he would know after trying. The next moment, a special energy gushed out of the stone blade. The breathing technique of 5 birds was the best energy drawing technique in the entire superpower realm. As for the energy drawing technique given by Lu Long, it seemed to be useless against the jade sword and stone knife. Fortunately, his teacher had taught him this. Otherwise, Li Hao would have had to soak it in water, dilute it, and absorb it bit by bit, just like before. Without the breathing technique of 5 birds, it would be difficult for ordinary supers to absorb the special energy in these weapons, unless they accidentally discovered the use of soaking in water, which might be useful. Starlight flashed. Similar to the starlight energy in the jade sword, Li Hao could see this energy when he opened his eyes. It's the same as the jade sword. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, Li Hao suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. A powerful and extremely aggressive energy was running wildly in his body. Li Hao's expression instantly changed. Mysterious energy. This was not starlight energy, but mysterious energy. No, it was even more aggressive than the mysterious energy. At this moment, Li Hao felt pain, an extremely intense pain, as if a knife was cutting his flesh. The energy in the stone saber was too aggressive. It was as if they had turned into many large blades that were crazily moving in his body. This time, Li Hao experienced the situation that Lu Long had described. Many people's blood vessels would burst when they absorbed the mysterious energy because the impact of the energy was too strong. But at this moment, Li Hao felt that the mysterious energy was at least 3 times stronger than it had been during the day. Ah! With a low cry, Li Hao's veins bulged, and some of them even burst. He hurriedly changed his posture and gave up on the breathing technique's absorption. In the blink of an eye, a large amount of saber energy entered Li Hao's body and attacked him. It hurt. It was an intense pain. In fact, Li Hao had also guessed whether the energy was the same and whether it could be a mysterious energy. However, absorbing the 2 energies during the day was not a big problem for him. Moreover, he had already entered the 10 decapitation realm, which was even stronger than during the day. Thus, Li Hao felt that it was acceptable. However, at this moment, Li Hao knew that he was wrong. Ah! With another low roar, a large amount of energy was still attacking Li Hao. The powerful attack caused his skin to crack. Li Hao discovered that he couldn't control this energy at all, let alone absorb it. I'm finished. Li Hao felt that he was done for. The next moment, he thought of something and hurriedly struggled to pick up the jade sword that he had put down. He grabbed it and quickly used the breathing technique of 5 birds. He didn't know if the starlight energy could repair and neutralize this power. Otherwise, Li Hao felt like he would die. It was too powerful. Another blood vessel burst, and blood spurted out. Thought this was completely different from the day. Chapter 94. Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 94. Chapter 26 Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 3, I was too impulsive. Li Hao woke up in shock. He wasn't flustered by the burst blood vessels, but rather, he felt a little guilty. The past 2 days had been very smooth. Although the red shadow appeared from time to time, it seemed that his teacher had become careless and relaxed after he advanced to the warrior Qian realm. He was directly absorbing the energy of the stone blade. Even though he knew that different weapons might not have the same energy, he still felt that it was fine and that he could withstand it. In fact, he couldn't. I'm just an ordinary person. I just advanced to the 10th severing stage, and it's all thanks to teacher. If I rely on myself. If I don't absorb the jade sword energy, I might not even be able to advance to the 10th severing stage in 3 years. Li Hao, you forgot that you're just an ordinary person. You have to be careful. Have you forgotten how terrifying the red shadow is? Have you forgotten that the realm of superpower is more terrifying than you think? He reflected on himself. At this moment, he quickly absorbed the jade sword energy, hoping to recover from his injuries and suppress the stone saber energy. This time, he had been too careless. Nah. With a low shout, Li Hao gritted his teeth and activated his breathing technique. A gentle jade sword energy quickly entered his body. This warm current quickly flowed through his entire body. The surging saber energy in his body suddenly quieted down and stopped attacking Li Hao's body, as if it were a younger brother who had seen his older brother. In the next moment, the jade sword could start to repair the blood vessels. The burst blood vessels began to heal gradually. His internal organs, which had been in a mess due to the impact of the saber energy, also quickly began to return to their original positions, and his injuries began to heal. Li Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He almost killed himself. He had overrated himself. A moment later, Li Hao began to practice the 5 birds technique again. This time, he didn't focus on the ape technique, but on the bear fighting technique. The bear fighting technique focused more on the improvement of strength and physique. It wasn't about being light and convenient. The more powerful the saber energy was, the more aggressive the mysterious energy would be. Tiger fighting technique was actually better, but it would cause too much of a commotion. The auntie downstairs would start spreading rumors about him again. Bear fighting technique, fighting as a support, stability as the main. It looked weak, even a tiger would fall to the ground with one palm. As he used the bear fighting technique, Li Hao's movements weren't fast, but each step and each palm seemed to use up all his strength. A large amount of saber energy and sword energy began to fuse into his body. Especially his 4 limbs. At this moment, Li Hao vaguely saw a lock. No, it wasn't a lock, but chains all over his body, locking him up. Super lock. Unlocking the superpower lock meant stepping into the superpower realm. The last time he felt it was when he was absorbing the jade sword energy. This time, he felt it again. These chains locked him up, preventing the mysterious energy from entering the core. His brain and heart wouldn't allow the energy to enter the core, which meant that Li Hao couldn't become a super for the time being. He could only strengthen his body. Boom! Li Hao stomped his foot lightly. He thought that it wouldn't be a big movement, but the next moment, the floor rumbled. His strength had increased. And it had become much stronger. Li Hao couldn't bear it and lost control. He had improved too quickly today. First, he had absorbed the mysterious energy to level up once. Then, Yuan Shua had leveled up and forced him to level up again. Now, he had absorbed the neutralizing energy of the saber and sword energy, and his strength had started to increase again. In just one day, his strength had probably increased by several times or more than yesterday. How could he not lose control? Downstairs, the auntie's sharp voice rang out, "Little Hao, what are you doing now? The dog has already been taken out, why are you here again?" Li Hao was speechless. It had nothing to do with dogs. "Auntie, the refrigerator is broken. I'll get it done immediately." Li Hao also shouted at the top of his voice. It was only then that the downstairs returned to silence. Li Hao wiped the sweat from his forehead, only to find that his hand was covered in blood. He had lost a lot of blood when his blood vessels burst just now. Li Hao didn't care about this. He slightly reduced his strength. Originally, he felt that living here was very good. It was an old house and there were feelings. But at this moment, Li Hao, who was still practicing martial arts, was somewhat distracted. If I can survive this time, I have to get some money and move to a bigger house. It's best if I can move to a standalone house. Otherwise, I won't be able to practice my martial arts at all. It's better to stay at the teacher's place. A house with its own courtyard. I can do whatever I want. Of course, this was all a story for later. If he died at the hands of the Red Shadow this time, everything would be over. Swish. Pa pa pa. He threw a punch and a palm. Li Hao stopped stomping his feet. As a result, although there was still some movement, it was much smaller than before. The bone banner trembled, and every time it attacked, it would cause a muffled sound. The sound of bones and tendons. Of course, this could be controlled. Otherwise, if a martial master's attack kept ringing, it would be easy for others to see through his moves. However, Li Hao couldn't control his strength at the moment. The sudden surge in strength caused him to be unable to control it. He was like a child who had picked up a sledgehammer, staggering slightly. This time, Li Hao used the bear fighting technique for 10 rounds. It only stopped after half an hour. I only absorbed a little, but it took me half an hour to digest it. I feel that it's even stronger than the 2 mysterious energies from this morning. Li Hao's eyes flickered as he looked at the stone saber and jade sword. This seems to be an offensive type of mystic energy. Although it's not quite the same as the one I absorbed this morning, I feel that the quality is higher. At this moment, he stopped absorbing. Even if he absorbed it madly, there would be a transformation process. A few days was not enough for him to undergo any transformation. It would be good if he could advance a little in the 10th Severing Realm. Chapter 95. Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 95. Chapter 26 Stone Blade, Demon Hunter, 1, moreover, he was worried that others would notice his abnormal progress. He needed time to slowly digest it. I can't. But teacher, didn't he say that he needed a large amount of mysterious energy to become a super? What about the energy of the stone blade? Li Hao fell into deep thought. Teacher already knows about the jade sword. He didn't say anything about the stone saber, but his teacher might have guessed it. Exhaling, Li Hao decided to tell his teacher. He was worried that the power behind the red shadow was beyond his imagination. After all, the other party might have taken away the weapons of the other families. Once the secret was discovered, it might not be all this mysterious power, but if the other party could make use of it, he might be even more powerful than sunlight. If teacher advances, he might surpass the sunlit realm and become one of the 3 to 5 people he mentioned. Li Hao took another deep breath. Normally, he would have slowly absorbed it himself. After all, humans were selfish. It was actually a pleasure to slowly become stronger. But now, he could not take it slow. I hope that the energy in this will be able to help teacher advance. If I succeed, I'll have a chance to have a future. Li Hao smiled at this thought. At that moment, he had overcome the greed in his heart. Everyone had greed, and no one was born a saint. It was possible to see through oneself, see through the fog, and not be confused by the benefits in front of them, which was success. His teacher had said that he had greed too. Li Hao had even sensed that his teacher had actually been greedy when he absorbed the jade sword energy. Now that his teacher had defeated him, Li Hao felt that he should be on par with his teacher. If teacher is strong, then I'm strong too. At least for now, I have a guarantee. At this thought, Li Hao stopped absorbing saber energy. He felt that it would be a waste to absorb it now. He would call the Black Panther back and absorb a little more to let the saber energy overflow and let the Black Panther feel better. The Black Panther was fat and strong thanks to the starlight, and it was very comfortable. Let it be happy. In this way, the Black Panther might be able to possess an extremely strong attack power, which could be considered as one of his bargaining chips. Thinking of this, Li Hao smiled. His smile was pure. Go Z, didn't you stare at my jade sword every day? I'll let you have your fun. Next time, let's see if you still want the jade sword. He washed his face and rinsed his mouth to wash away the blood. Li Hao went downstairs. He dragged the full Black Panther up quietly, in case the auntie saw him and wondered why he had brought the dog home. The Black Panther was also very obedient and resigned to its fate as it was dragged along. They entered the house. Li Hao's smile was very warm. He chuckled in a low voice and said, "Black Panther, I'll let you absorb some different energy. It'll hurt a little, but after you absorb it, you'll really become a Black Panther. At least you'll be able to defeat a leopard." The Black Panther revealed a look of anticipation. "Do you want to absorb it?" Li Hao thought for a moment and warned, "It's a little painful. I just sucked a little. It's quite painful." Black Panther's eyes revealed a disapproving look. "If you can absorb it, I can too." Pain. What was pain? He didn't understand. "I'm fat and strong now. Just now, I even slapped a big dog downstairs and made it scream. I'm confident. Are you sure you want to suck it?" The Black Panther was already getting impatient. It felt that Li Hao had talked too much tonight. "All right then." Li Hao didn't say anything else. "I'm warning you in advance. Son of A B *TCH, have fun." The next moment, Li Hao was prepared. This time, he used the 5 birds breathing technique and absorbed a little. He felt that there was not much energy, about 1 or 2 units of mysterious energy. This could be sold for money. He was really good to the young paparazzo. He endured the severe pain and absorbed a little jade sword energy to neutralize it. The next moment, about half of the saber energy leaked out. As for the Black Panther, its 4 limbs were facing the sky. This fellow also knew the breathing technique of 5 birds. All of a sudden, a large amount of energy gushed into the Black Panther's body. Ow! A shrill cry reverberated in all directions. It was like a wolf's howl. Downstairs, the old lady sighed. She looked upstairs and then at the old man opposite her. She sighed softly, "The young man is hopeless, he's playing with dogs again. If his parents were still alive, they would have died of anger." He felt a little emotional and a little resentful. He had fallen. He used to be a good student, but now that he dropped out, he's really become bad. Is everyone at the inspection office like this? How terrifying. Don't ever let my grandson enter the inspection office. Li Hao couldn't care less about the old lady's thoughts. He pinched the dog's mouth and cursed in a low voice, "What are you shouting for? If you attract that thing, be careful or it will eat you. I've told you so many times that it hurts a little, but you insisted on sucking it." Woo woo. The Black Panther dog's eyes were filled with tears. It was too painful. Li Hao was really inhumane. More like a dog. If you had said it was so painful, I wouldn't have sucked it even if you killed me. Digest it well, what do you know? This thing can't be exchanged for 1,000 gold. After absorbing it, you'll be powerful. The next time you encounter that thing, you can bite it to death. Li Hao warned. The next moment, he began to practice martial arts. Ape art. He had also absorbed some, so he couldn't waste it. The Black Panther was in great pain and sorrow, but there was nothing it could do. Seeing Li Hao start to jump, the Black Panther also began to move its limbs and wagged its tail. It began to practice its dog fist. The ape technique wasn't suitable for it. The Black Panther wanted to learn it, but it realized that it couldn't jump as nimbly. It could only use its instinctive fist, commonly known as the dog paddle. A man and a dog began to digest the saber energy. The room returned to silence. Outside the room, on the opposite building, Lu Long silently stared at the closed curtain opposite him. At this moment, it wasn't just him, the other members of the demon hunting squad were also present. "Boss, why don't we just go over and sleep with Li Hao?" Lu Yen smiled like a flower and teased. Lu Long coldly glanced at her, causing her to instantly fall silent. His smile gradually disappeared. Lu Long said coldly, "This time, we might fail. However, if we win, the rewards will not be small. Some of us might die this time. Those who don't have a chance of stepping into the realm of supers." The few of them fell silent. Lu Long let out a soft sigh. "I can vaguely feel a faint mysterious energy fluctuation in the surroundings. It's not too strong, but very weak. However, they still followed us despite knowing that we might be here. This means that the other party is determined to win. Now, the other party is waiting for an opportunity. The murderer behind the self-immolation case should already know of their existence and even know that they had their eyes on him. However, he was still following Li Hao and was not far from him. Lu Long knew that he had encountered a tough opponent this time. At the side, the thin and weak Wu Chao laughed coldly, "Boss, 5 times, it was all a gamble. After 5 times, only the few of us survived. I don't want to die, I still want to become a super. However, if he really died, that was also fate. Boss, just tell me what to do." The others did not speak. Lu Long took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Once the rainy day arrives, have Li Hao go to the suburbs. There's a large warehouse there, where the decisive battle will take place. They think they are supers and have nothing to fear. Then let them know that demon hunting squads are not to be messed with." Then, he looked at the others and suddenly clenched his fist. His voice was low and solemn. "We will do justice and eliminate the evil." 2 of the oaths. However, in the next moment, even Yunyao clenched her fists and raised them, shouting, "For the sake of justice, exterminate the evil and protect the Tao." At this moment, the 5 people's faces seemed to be filled with holy light. Demon hunters, exterminate demons and defend the Tao. Chapter 96. Taking the initiative to probe. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 96. Chapter 27. Taking the initiative to probe. 1. On the opposite building, the demon hunting squad made their oath, sacred yet laughable. Li Hao didn't know any of this. If he knew, he would probably find it a little funny. The messenger of justice. In his eyes, this was just the wishful thinking of Lu Long and the others. They were just brainwashing themselves. Did they really think that he was the guardian of the Silver City? When Li Hao shouted this slogan, he only wanted to occupy some moral high ground. In the room. After Li Hao finished practicing, Black Panther also finished his dog fist. The man and the dog were both exhausted. Li Hao sat on the ground, gasping for breath. The Black Panther was lying on the ground, as if it didn't even have the strength to raise its head. Heibao felt that he had been set up. After resting for a while, Li Hao endured the soreness in his body and got up to clean up the room. The smell was too horrible. It was also mixed with the smell of blood. The smell of sweat, blood, and the Black Panther's dog smell made the small house really unpleasant. Li Hao quickly packed up, also in case the Red Shadow suddenly appeared. He didn't want the Red Shadow to see anything. After cleaning up for a while, the smell in the room was much less. A moment later, Li Hao sat on the sofa and looked at the three treasures in front of him in a daze. 2 swords and a stone knife. They were all extraordinary items. An ordinary person with 3 extraordinary items, and all of them were not simple. If such a person did not die, who would? Treasuring a jade is a crime. Teacher. Lu Long. He said. Li Hao silently muttered. His teacher was a good person. At least, he treated him well. He naturally understood this. In addition, Lu Long was actually a decent person. If this guy didn't plan to steal his sword, then Lu Long would have a sense of justice. Lu Long knew that Li Hao had a treasure. He might not know how powerful it was, but he knew that Li Hao had it. He even knew that Li Hao might have the saber. Other than Yuan Shua and Li Hao, the Red Shadow's side might not know anything. Lu Long was the third person to know that Li Hao had the saber. Lu Long, on the other hand, did not mention any of this. That guy only wanted to kill the supers and take their mysterious abilities to level up. One must know that no matter how inferior a transcendent item was, it was still a treasure to Lu Long. He might not be able to use it, but it might not be difficult for him to exchange a treasure for some mysterious energy. If Lu Long really wanted to become a super and fall into the darkness, he could use Li Hao and Li Hao's swords to exchange for the mysterious energy with the Red Shadow. At this moment, Li Hao's thoughts gradually became clear. Teacher, maybe he can't show his face so easily. He will have his own troubles and pursuits when he becomes a super. Lu Long. If I solve the problem of the Red Shadow this time, what should I do next? Many thoughts flashed through his mind. If he had the chance, he should help Lu Long become a super. As he thought, Li Hao put on his inspector uniform. The Black Panther raised its head and revealed a puzzled expression. Why are you wearing clothes so late at night? Come out with me. Woof. The Black Panther dog's eyes were filled with suspicion. I'm going to the Silver City's ancient courtyard. You're still the same. Keep an eye on him. Woof woof woof. The Black Panther let out a low cry, as if it was resisting. Li Hao laughed, afraid of that thing. What was there to be afraid of? Don't be afraid. It's best if it comes out, I hope it will appear again. When this thing appears more often, my fear of it will gradually decrease, and I will understand it more and more. At this moment, he even hoped that the Red Shadow would appear. Every time they met, it would weaken its sense of mystery. He was no longer an existence that couldn't be dealt with. Although Li Hao could only hope that his teacher and the others could solve the problem, Li Hao felt that he couldn't always rely on outsiders to help him solve all his problems. As for the Red Shadow, he might not be able to deal with it in one go. This was his intuition. Woof. 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 Heibao resigned himself to his fate. He was a little unwilling, but when he thought about how he still had to follow Li Hao, he could only give in obediently. After a while, a man and a dog set off in the dark night. To the ancient academy. On the opposite building. Wu Chao, who was still monitoring, suddenly had a change in expression. "Boss," in the room, the others all looked at him. Li Hao went out. Lu Long was a little surprised. What was Li Hao doing out in the middle of the night? Didn't he know that he was in danger? What the hell? Keep up. Lu Long quickly shouted in a low voice. The demon hunting squad's efficiency was extremely high, and they quickly followed. Although it wasn't a rainy night, it was still dangerous for Li Hao to go out alone at night. Superhumans actually like to move out at night. Supers rarely appeared during the day to avoid too much contact with ordinary people. There was already a clear boundary between superpowers and mortals. In addition, the night patrolmen were behind the scenes, causing chaos in the ordinary world. This would also invite the night patrolmen's revenge. At the same time, in a corner of Qiming community, under a big tree, a ghostly face suddenly appeared in the shadow of the tree. The man with the ghost mask. A red shadow appeared beside the masked man. A pair of blue eyes on the mask looked into the distance with some confusion. Li Hao had gone out at night. He can't leave the Silver City before the rainy season. This sentence appeared in the ghost face's mind. It was a request and order from the higher-ups. The Grimace's mission was not to kill or deal with Li Hao. He had only received one order, and that was to not let Li Hao leave Silver City. Li Hao's whereabouts had to be in Silver City. Chapter 97. Taking the initiative to probe. 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 97. Chapter 27. Taking the initiative to probe. 2. A trap. This thought appeared in the ghost face's mind. He knew that the so-called demon hunting team had been following Li Hao, but he didn't care. Demon hunting squad. Transcendent and non-transcendent were already two different worlds. Lu Long of the demon hunting squad was quite famous, as he was a martial master with a cultivation of over 100. However, martial arts had long declined. Yuan Shua, who used to run amok all his life, was now just a worker, working for the night patrolmen in exchange for their protection. The era of martial arts had long passed. Let's follow and see. The ghost face disappeared into the darkness, but the red shadow didn't. It floated in the air and chased after Li Hao. The ghost face did not seem to be worried that the red shadow would be discovered. Even if the red shadow faced a martial master who was over 100, the ghost face was not too worried, because these ordinary people did not understand that transcendence were no longer ordinary people. Under the night sky, Li Hao walked in the direction of the ancient academy with a dog. It wasn't too far, only a few kilometers. It would only take him half an hour to walk. At this moment, he still had 3 treasures on him. Li Hao was bold when he needed to be. He was sure that the red shadow would not kill him now, so he hoped that the other party would appear. If he did, he would be able to understand the red shadow more, and also take the opportunity to judge whether the demon hunting squad would be able to see the red shadow. He knew that there was definitely someone from the demon hunting squad following him. Could these martial masters see it? Li Hao wasn't sure. There didn't seem to be any mysterious energy on the red shadow. Lu Long had said that martial masters discovered transcendence through faint fluctuations of mysterious energy. If there was no mysterious energy, could Lu Long see it? Being unable to see. That was the greatest danger. If Lu Long couldn't see it, what about the teacher? If their teacher couldn't see it, it would be troublesome. Li Hao could see it, but it was useless. Their teacher couldn't even attack the red shadow, which was the greatest danger. I hope you will appear. Li Hao thought to himself, hoping to meet the red shadow again this time. He had even made some preparations to be audacious. This time, he might be able to make a move and try. He was getting bolder and bolder because the red shadow would not kill him now. 5 minutes passed, and no one followed. After 10 minutes, there was still no one. After 15 minutes, the Black Panther beside him suddenly became restless and bit Li Hao's trousers. Li Hao made up his mind. Ednel.co, it's here. He was really bold. The red shadow had really appeared. This meant that something terrible had happened. The existence behind the scenes was either certain that Lu Long and the others couldn't see it, or certain that they would be fine even if they saw it. Lu Long and the others were not even worth mentioning. According to his teacher, Lu Long was someone who could take care of those who had just reached the level of Dark Moon. Li Hao was expressionless as he continued walking. However, in the eyes of the Black Panther, it was not the case. Instead, there was a terrifying scene. A red shadow suddenly appeared in front of Li Hao. Blood red. He stood in front of Li Hao. However, Li Hao didn't seem to see it at all. He passed through the red shadow, which swayed slightly. At this moment, Li Hao suddenly took out a sword. The small sword. The sword seemed to have some mysterious energy. Li Hao frowned slightly and looked around with a vigilant expression. In the darkness, Lu Long slightly frowned and said in a low voice, "What's going on?" He sensed danger. "What about you guys?" None of the people present felt anything special. Even Lu Long didn't feel it. He only felt that something was wrong. It was only when Li Hao took out the small sword and a faint mysterious energy flickered that Lu Long felt something was amiss. Did Li Hao discover something, or did the sword in his hand sense something? That sword was the sword of the Li family. He couldn't feel anything from far away, but it must be an extraordinary item. At the same time, the ghostly face's shadow also appeared in the darkness. Its blue eyes looked in Li Hao's direction in surprise. An extraordinary item. This was the treasure that the higher.ups wanted. The sword has appeared. He found out. The ghost face was surprised and confused. He knew that Li Hao couldn't see the red shadow. He didn't see it last time, and it was the same this time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sensed the abnormality only after passing through the red shadow. What made Li Hao react was probably the sword. It was indeed a treasure. What can you do if you notice the difference? The ghost face thought to himself, but he was not too nervous. Even if you did, what could you do? The red shadow is right in front of you, what can you do? There were fewer and fewer people who could see the red shadow now, and he had killed many of them. As for those who were still alive, they were probably hiding in the Nightwalkers' headquarters. They might not even be seen in Silvermoon Province. On the roadside, holding the sword, Li Hao frowned and looked around. He suddenly said coldly, "Stop hiding, I found you." Silence. Li Hao suddenly brandished his short sword and slashed in all directions. With a bit of ruthlessness, he gritted his teeth and said, "If you want to kill me, you'll have to pay the price. Don't think that no one will know of your existence just because you're hiding. I already knew where you were. Fearsome on the outside but cowardly on the inside. My teacher is a top-notch martial master with a cultivation base of over 100 martial masters. He's on the verge of a Qian warrior. You've touched me and offended a Qian warrior. Is it worth it? There are some things that we can sit down and talk about. It doesn't have to be a life and death battle." Chapter 98. Taking the initiative to probe. 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 98. Chapter 27. Taking the initiative to probe. 3. Li Hao's words echoed in the darkness. As for himself, he held the sword and kept waving it. He passed through the red shadows several times. As for Li Hao, the more he waved it, the colder he felt. Why? What was this red shadow? He had unintentionally slashed a few times, but he had successfully pierced through the red shadow without causing any damage. Why was this happening? Even transcendents were not immortal. What was this thing? The next moment, Li Hao exhaled, put away his sword, and said, boss, come out. No one's following me, are you there? After a while. In the dark, Lu Long, who was wearing a windbreaker, stepped out with a slight frown. He looked in Li Hao's direction, his eyes cold. Not because of Li Hao. It was because he had a vague feeling that something was wrong. Something was really wrong. There seemed to be something near Li Hao. He tried his best to look, but he still did not discover anything. There must be something here, he thought to himself as he strode forward. A moment later, he walked up to Li Hao, and Li Hao saw the red shadow quickly disappear. Li Hao's heart skipped a beat. She didn't want to have direct contact with Lu Long. Was he afraid, or did he think it was unnecessary? As if sensing something, Lu Long suddenly looked in a certain direction, his eyes filled with killing intent. After a long time, when the red shadow had completely disappeared, Lu Long's voice was somewhat cold as he said in a low voice, "Interesting. But what a pity. A pity." Li Hao was puzzled. Lu Long furrowed his brows and said coldly, "Unfortunately, I'm not a Qian warrior." It seemed to be a kind of spiritual energy. It had the power to break 100, and the spirit to fight 1,000. No wonder he's so bold. Even with my power, I can't detect him. This means that perhaps only by breaking through 1,000 can I lock onto him with my divine intent. How arrogant. He snorted. He also had the strength and reason to be arrogant. He could feel it, but he couldn't lock onto it. To Lu Long, encountering such an existence was a great test. It was very difficult to deal with, and he might even fall. But Li Hao's expression changed. Force, God. This teacher had also said this before. There was a God in the universe. Gods could see red shadows. Or could it be that he couldn't see it, but he could lock onto the other party's position? This trip was worth it. The red shadow didn't take Lu Long seriously, thinking that Lu Long couldn't see it, so it didn't pay much attention to him. However, Li Hao obtained an important piece of information here. It was spiritual. Ranked energy. The fighting 1,000 divine intent might be able to lock onto him. At this moment, Lu Long looked at Li Hao again. After a moment of silence, he said, "You deliberately came out to lure out the guy hiding in the dark for me to observe." Yes. Li Hao nodded. Of course, this was not his main goal. He just wanted to see if Lu Long could see if he had a way to come into contact with the red shadow. Now, it seemed that if he was not good at martial arts, he might not be able to use superpowers. But Li Hao knew that swords could. That's right. The jade pendant and stone saber in his arms had been emitting energy, but Li Hao suppressed it. He resisted the urge to take them out and didn't use them. Lu Long didn't say anything. Looking at the short sword in Li Hao's hand, his eyes flickered, and he muttered, "Know yourself and know your enemy. Although you've taken some risks this time, you've also allowed me to understand more about the dangers." He thought for a while and said, "It involves the spiritual level. Perhaps there's really some trouble this time. It could even be at the 1,000 warrior level." Doqian, in fact, was not necessarily unrivaled. The key was that he could not see it. Lu Long changed the topic and said, "Go back early and don't run around." With that, he disappeared from the spot. He might have to change his plan. Li Hao's trip this time was a good thing for him. He had a better understanding of his opponent. He had already made preparations to fight with Qian warrior and sunlight. Level powerhouses. Although he only had a cultivation of over 100, this was his home ground. He had even buried a large number of mines near the warehouse. However, it would be troublesome if he were to encounter an invisible expert of the 1,000 fighter level. He would need to make better preparations and plans to find a way to solve this problem. Under the moonlight. Li Hao tightened his clothes. Lu Long didn't give up, which meant that he was still thinking of a way. It was a good thing, so Lu Long didn't cower in fear. 1,000 warrior. Spiritual level. After taking note of this, Li Hao continued moving forward. This time, the red shadow did not appear again. Soon, they arrived at the ancient academy. He didn't enter from the main entrance. Instead, he nimbly climbed over the wall and entered the ancient courtyard. The ancient academy's security was decent, but it was only for ordinary people. Li Hao was a martial master of the 10th execution realm, after all, so it wasn't a problem for him to avoid the general security. Outside the small courtyard, Hu Hao, who was secretly guarding the place, frowned and looked in a direction. Beside him, Li Meng, who had been seriously injured, was also waiting with a pale face. Suddenly, he turned to look at Li Hao and said in a low voice, somewhat confused and angry, "Why is he here again? They really came frequently." "Don't bother," Hu Hao said. He had just suffered a loss in the afternoon, so he didn't have to say anything now. While the two were talking, Li Hao entered the small courtyard. This time, no one stopped him. The Yuan family. The small courtyard was very quiet. Yuan Shuo was not in the courtyard. It was late at night, so he would not be here to bask in the moonlight. The door of the main house opened automatically without any wind. In the living room, Yuan Shuo might have just finished his cultivation. He had just advanced to the 1,000 warrior tier, so he was still stabilizing his realm. Chapter 99. Taking the initiative to probe. 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 99. Chapter 27. Taking the initiative to probe. 4. His hair had been dyed white, and the wrinkles on his face had reappeared. He was no different from before, unlike the 40-year-old middle-aged man Li Hao had seen before. "Teacher." Yuan Shuo nodded and glanced at him. Suddenly, he frowned and said in a low voice, "Are you being watched?" "Yes." Yuan Shuo looked at him, frowning. Then, he said with a heavy tone, "There are some traces of divine intent. You've been locked on." "What?" Li Hao didn't quite understand. Yuan Shuo explained, "Xian Do, wake up. If it was before, I wouldn't have been able to notice it, but now. I can feel that someone seems to have left some traces of divine intent on your body. And it hasn't been long. Perhaps you just met the murderer." Li Hao nodded and said, "Yes." Chief Lu followed them but didn't find anything. He also said that it might involve the spiritual level. He's indeed difficult to deal with. Sigh. Yuan Shuo sighed. Even though I've already guessed it, it's still a headache to confirm it. Li Hao thought for a moment. There's one more thing. The other party disappeared without a trace. Captain Lu can't find him or lock onto him. "Teacher. I'm fine." Yuan Shuo shook his head, "At our level, if we don't look at what's in front of us, what we see might not be real. With the divine will, even invisibility can't hide from me, unless the person is much stronger than me." Li Hao nodded. His teacher was not bragging. Li Hao didn't come here for this. He took out the stone knife and placed it on the table. Yuan Shuo looked at him and seemed to understand what it was. Li Hao said softly, "There's a special mysterious energy inside. It's more aggressive than ordinary mysterious energy. It's different from the gentleness of starlight energy. It's extremely powerful." "Are the use of the sword different?" Yuan Shuo pondered. The Li family's sword and the Zhang family's saber, one is gentle and nourishing, while the other is sharp and good at attacking. Among the 8 great families, there's the Zhao family's fists, the Lu family's legs, the Wang family's turtle, the Hong family's hammer, the Zhou family's spear, the Jing family's young master dragging us down. If we follow the literal meaning, the fists, legs, Wang family, and Jing family might not have any weapons, but it's hard to say. The fists and legs don't mean that they don't have weapons. That turtle might represent a defensive shield or something. Yuan Shuo was not in a hurry to talk about the saber. Instead, he analyzed the situation. If the weapons of the other 6 families have been taken away, the other party must have also absorbed the energy from them. Spears and hammers are good at attacking, Tortoiseshell is good at defense, and his fists and legs are sharp. He felt a little heavy. Then it's really not easy to deal with. The main thing is that I'm not sure how much energy the other party has absorbed. Is it all of it or a part of it? Or maybe other weapons don't have the energy contained in swords at all. The other party didn't dare to rob you directly or even capture you to keep as a pet. It might be because they are afraid of the night patrolman, which means it shouldn't be too much beyond imagination. I'll keep the saber for now, but I'm not sure if I can break through. The main thing is that I'm not sure if the time and energy are enough, but don't worry, even if it's stronger than sunlight, it's not impossible to deal with. Li Hao nodded. It's good that you're thoughtful. If there's a problem, just run. If I can't win, then I'll just run. Teacher can always take me and run, right? If worse comes to worst, we can just run to the night patrolman's headquarters. They won't just leave us in the lurch, right? Yuan Shuo laughed. That's my style. However, it was hard to say, and it was not easy to run, as it was too far. The Silver City was too small. It was too far away from White Moon City. As for running away now, Li Hao and Yuan Shuo were unwilling to accept it. Besides, running away now would only hasten the enemy's plan. In a few more days, Yuan Shuo might have a chance to advance. This time, the master and disciple did not say anything more. Yuan Shuo didn't even refuse and directly accepted the stone knife. At this juncture, there was no need to be polite. Li Hao didn't stay for long and quickly left the small courtyard. After Li Hao left, Yuan Shuo tried to absorb the energy. Before he left, Li Hao reminded him that it was very painful. Yuan Shuo didn't take it seriously. However, Yuan Shuo's mouth twitched when he really absorbed some saber energy. TSK, it really hurt. This energy was too violent. In the next moment, Yuan Shuo's eyes lit up. Good stuff. The inheritance weapons of the 8 great families were indeed top-notch treasures. This sealed stone saber was actually filled with so much powerful offensive energy. The more you know about the 8 great families of Silver City, the more mysterious they are. Thinking of this, he thought of the archaeological ruin exploration that he had to participate in at the end of the month. Yuan Shuo fell into deep thought. That ancient ruin. Is it related to the 8 great families? Originally, these two things had nothing to do with each other. One was in Silver City, while the other was almost out of Silver Moon Province. Moreover, one was a small place, while the other was an ancient civilization site. But at this moment, he suddenly felt that there might really be a connection. I remember that in the ruins, there was a turtle engraved on the main gate. I didn't think much about it before. Could it be that it has something to do with the Wang family of the 8 great families? At this moment, Yuan Shuo fell into deep thought. That ruin was the largest and most well-preserved one he had discovered over the years. At the same time, it was also the most dangerous ruin. He had been injured 3 years ago at that place. Many people had died that time, so the night patrolman had given up on exploring and had sealed off the area. It was about to be reopened recently, and it was said that it was not only the night patrolman but a few other supernatural organizations that were working together to explore it. Clearly, the night patrolmen were worried about heavy casualties again. Although they needed to share the loot, they could only do so. There was strength in numbers. If the losses were big, it was better to bear it together. The 8 great families. The ruins. The murderer of the self-immolation case. If the murderer of the self-immolation case knew something about the 8 great families, or even guessed or simply knew that the ruins were related to the 8 great families, would he also participate? In that case, if the other party was an organization, would more of their forces be concentrated there? In this way, the Silver City would be a bit safer. Let's not think about this first. Yuan Shua took a deep breath. The most important thing now was to deal with Li Hao's problem. As for the ruins, he would think about it later. Chapter 100. First test of the blade, fighting for the top 10, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 100. Chapter 28. First test of the blade, fighting for the top 10, after giving away the stone saber, Li Hao's mood calmed down. He had done everything he could. This was all he could do for now. As for the night patrolman, it would depend on Lu Long's arrangements. Li Hao had told Lu Long about Wang Ming's existence, but Li Hao didn't know the specific situation. Lu Long would probably know better than him what to do. Teacher and Lu Long are now aware of the Red Shadow's invisibility. Is there anything else you haven't said? Li Hao thought for a moment. Oh, there's one more thing I didn't say. I can see. But that's not important. He didn't have to reveal all his secrets. He could see it, but no one knew. Perhaps it would be of some use. Even if he said it, it might not be of any help to everyone. The next few days will be the time for me to work hard to improve myself. Right now, it was too late for him to improve himself. Otherwise, Li Hao would rather continue training in silence and then kill the Red Shadow himself. But time wasn't on his side. However, now that he had reached this step, what he needed to do next was very simple. He needed to strengthen himself. Having entered the 10-slashing realm, he had never fought with any expert. He had never fought a real battle. According to his teacher, this kind of martial master was just for show. In fact, he wasn't really that capable. He just ran faster than others, so his punches hurt more. It was another peaceful night. 15th of July. Inspection Office, Basement, Demon Hunter Squad Base. Li Hao had come very early today, and had no interest in beating around the bush with Wang Ming, so he had simply come here. Early in the morning, Li Hao began to practice the 5 birds technique. Here, he didn't have to worry about disturbing the ante downstairs. Fist technique, grabbing technique, bear hug, tiger pounce. This time, Li Hao tried to use all 5 birds. Tiger, bear, deer, ape, bird. When he practiced, his posture was a little ugly. He even used both his hands and feet. Sometimes, he would lie on the ground and jump up like a wild beast. Among the 5 birds technique, the bird technique was actually the most difficult to practice. The flying bird technique focused on making one's body light. The main point of flying was to borrow force to fly. This was not very friendly to newbies like Li Hao. After a few leaps, Li Hao directly fell to the ground and crashed heavily. It was not as useful as the ape technique. After a few times, Li Hao simply gave up on the flying bird technique and focused on the ape technique, which he was most familiar with. Li Hao was engrossed in his training when someone entered. Chen Jian, who had an incomparably strong body, looked like he had not fully woken up. He pushed the door open and entered. When he saw Li Hao, he was slightly stunned and surprised. Li Hao, you're here so early. He didn't sleep well last night, but he was the first to arrive. He didn't expect Li Hao to arrive before him. As for the task of protecting Li Hao, he didn't have to worry too much with boss around. Brother Jian. Li Hao panted slightly. He smiled and suddenly said, Brother Jian, are you interested in sparring with me again? What? Chen Jian was a little surprised. He had thought that Li Hao wouldn't want to fight him again after his last loss. He didn't expect that this kid would take the initiative to mention it. You want to practice with me? Chen Jian laughed naively. I'm actually not good at attacking, and I'm mainly good at defense. How about this? I'll just defend and not attack, and be your sparring partner. Li Hao's face was filled with joy. A shield-defense sparring partner like Chen Jian was probably the favorite of newcomers like him. After all, a living person and a target were different. Moreover, the other party was an extremely powerful martial master in shield defense. With Qin Jian as a sparring partner, he would definitely be much better than himself. Brother Jian, I absorbed the mysterious energy yesterday. I'm fine. Qin Jian had a silly smile on his face, but he was powerless to ridicule in his heart. I know. Yesterday, you absorbed 2 of them. Of course, I know about it. The key is. You also know that you only absorbed it yesterday. The effect of the mysterious energy is not something that can be absorbed and digested in a day. It is a long-term digestion process. In addition, although Li Hao had some foundation before, he wasn't much. He was stronger than ordinary people, but in front of a real martial master, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. Qin Jian was still defending with his shield, so why would he be worried that Li Hao would hurt him? Li Hao stopped his cultivation and said with joy, Then I won't be pretentious anymore. Brother Jian, please enlighten me. You can attack as you wish. Although I won't fight back, I'll dodge. This is also a basic instinct of shield defense. Understood. Li Hao was overjoyed. This was even better. Otherwise, he might as well go and forge. The 2 of them didn't say anything else. Li Hao pounced like a tiger and used tiger fighting technique. His hands were like claws, and he went straight for Qin Jian's arms, trying to grab them. Although Qin Jian was fat, his movements were extremely agile. He did not make too big of a move. With a slight movement of his feet, he avoided the attack by 3 inches. Li Hao's grasp missed, and the air seemed to be whizzing. Qin Jian, who had just avoided it, was slightly stunned. So much. At this moment, Li Hao didn't hesitate. His grab didn't work, and he fell to the ground. His 4 limbs stuck to the ground, and his legs pushed off the ground like a deer's burst. A deer's steps were light and agile, and it was in a comfortable state. However, when it was in danger, the burst of power from a deer was extremely powerful. Qin Jian moved again to avoid it, but he wasn't as fast as Li Hao's kick. Qin Jian no longer avoided it. As a shield defense, if he couldn't avoid it, he would defend. Boom! An explosion rang out. Li Hao's body was still in the air. He used the force from his legs to push off and concentrated all his strength into his arms. At this moment, like a fierce tiger coming down a mountain, he clenched his fists and punched out. Bang! Bang! Qin Jian took a step back, and Li Hao was also forced back by the huge force of the counterattack. However, the moment he retreated, he was like an ape, making an incredible ripple in the air.